to be ruled by the bloodline families and what it takes to finally break free of deep state rule. Part 2.0 of the History of Celestials. Not all programs run against humanity are of human origin, as we discover the base root of human interface quantum technology. The World Health Organization, World Economic Forum, and governments have absolutely no control over the narratives they run. And an update on the deep state meetings that took place earlier this week as they attempt to run the world with no money, no control, and no quantum AI. Now here's Kimberly Gogan with the Office of the Guardian. Hi, Kim. Welcome back.
Yeah, I know. God, it feels like it's been forever. I'm like, did I talk about that? No, I haven't said anything about that yet. So.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about today because, you weren't on the news on Wednesday. So where do you want to start?
All right. Well, let's start with some regular news quickly, and then we'll go into the meetings, and then we'll talk about the good stuff. Well,
okay.
And it will make a little bit more sense.
Okay.
So yesterday, 34 counts. Trump was indicted.
Oh.
I have to mention this for a reason. So,
okay.
And allegedly there's some kind of felony involved. I don't know. I don't really follow this, but I'm only following it because of a few things I've heard.
Okay.
So, apparently the sentencing is sometime next month, about 30 days. And allegedly the state of New York is preparing for him to go to jail, which none of these people really ever go to jail, do they?
No.
But the rumblings that I've heard amongst the deep state is that there's a possibility that we may have another Epstein switcheroo.
Okay.
So go to jail, allegedly commit suicide as a martyr, and then except there's nobody coming out on the other side because he's not alive, unlike Epstein.
Yeah.
Epstein is alive and well and someplace else. So
yeah.
But they think that this is going to be enough to start a civil war. Now, if you haven't seen it, the reason why we're kind of putting two and two together on how they plan to orchestrate this, because if you haven't seen it, there's a new movie out called Civil War. And it's about a group of journalists that are interviewing the president. Not necessarily anyone in particular, but the president as he exits Washington, D.C., due to the fact in the movie they call them a group of the Western forces, predominantly from California and Texas, that are going to take over the country.
Is this coming out in theaters, Kim, or where is this movie?
I saw it streaming online. Haven't actually watched the whole thing yet. Haven't had time to do that, but that's the gist of it. Kind of scanned through it based on somebody else's suggestion in about 15 minutes. So you can see how much the movie I watched. It was an hour and a half long. I just didn't have time, but he felt it was important. So I thought I would scan through it. And but based on what I'm hearing from the remnants of what you would call the deep state kind of sort of leadership, is that they are hoping for a financial crash, then a civil war here in the States. America will officially fall, and then China will take over the world. So they're still working on this plan. Either that or there's still talk about the 7 different parts of the world, of course, which of all of them, they will still control. So all 7. Then I've heard chatter about 9 possible places of control in the world, and they will control all 9. And they're having a little bit of a discussion on how they're going to do this, but it's kind of like a fantasy, you know. There's a lot of things going on right now that are like a fantasy. And it's a fantasy of a group of people that don't understand what it's like not to have a silver spoon in their mouth. So, speaking of fantasies, huge meeting they called. I mean, an enormous meeting on the 28th was the meeting. And in this enormous meeting, I mean, they called every operative, all the SSP was there, all the black nobility was there, Silent Circle, operatives from around the world, enormous meeting. This was almost like your Bretton Woods, but for all things in the world. So in this meeting, everybody thought they were coming to the meeting to discuss, and they did discuss, and this went on for, 2 days. It went on the 28th and on the 29th. So hence the reason why it wasn't around. Mm-hmm. And this was supposed to be how they were going to run the world, the direction the entire world was going to go into. And based on the fact they figured that they would have some money coming from somewhere, why, I don't know, by then. Well, turns out a lot of this was tied to some old information that they had regarding celestials and the different colors of tribes. And we'll get to that in a minute. They have also figured out that they did not have what they thought they had since then. But then they came to the second half of the meeting and basically told everybody that nothing was, they need another week. Something happened with their systems, like it was theirs in the first place. And something happened with their systems and that they were going to need another week or so to sort that out before everybody got paid. So surprising, really. I mean, just a total shocker. Yeah. So this was late Wednesday and again on early Thursday. Well, by Thursday, everybody started getting really upset. Thursday morning, it was an early meeting. And the comments that were made when they were backed into a corner was, and I want to thank the deep state for this, They say, I want to thank my parents when you win like a Grammy or something, I want to thank the deep state. They actually told them that I am responsible for messing up their systems. So that's why they need a little more time.
Okay.
That's actually good. Said my name and that I am responsible. And you know what? They're right. I am. That's the first bit of truth I've ever heard come out of these people's mouth. But it gave me an enormous amount of street cred.
Yes, it did.
So I'm like, yes. So everybody was very upset that they would not get an update for at least a week. After this conversation took place. So they scheduled a call actually for 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time today with everyone, all of these people that came to the How We're Going to Dominate the World meeting. And wouldn't you know it? The only ones that showed up were Langley 5, the global headquarters people, and the Silent Circle and Black Nobility people. Nobody else showed up.
So it was supposed to be like all the people that came to that really big meeting, or all of those people
militaries were involved. Yeah, militaries and intelligence agencies and everything from all over the world to get contracts and hear about the new narrative of world domination and plans. So for the first time ever, though, this morning, no governments showed up, no militaries showed up, no operatives showed up. The alleged leaderships are the only ones that showed up. Usually it was the other way around.
Yeah, it's true. Mm-hmm.
But no one showed up.
What do you think that means?
I don't know. This just happened this morning.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this much. For an hour later, there was another meeting scheduled between all of them. To which they went into this education. Last I looked, which was about 10, 15 minutes ago, they were looking at now doing a Q&A. They were looking at the real structure of the world, where orders came from, where money comes from, how things are really done. There was a very nice bit of, I don't know what you want to say. I'm not even going to call it class. I'm just going to say an intel briefing. How's that? I won't.
With correct intel.
Yeah. Joint Chiefs of Staff were there, or are there because the meeting's still going on. Joint Chiefs of Staff are in there. GCHQ is in there. The Russians are in there. The SVR, GRU is there. That's Russian intelligence, GRU. So SVR. That's like our CIA. There are people from the CIA, different agencies from around the world. South Africa's there. So this is interesting. It's very interesting. And so it didn't get much further because we're about 3 hours into this meeting, and now they're just about the last hour. It's been a Q&A. So I'm not sure how that's going to all turn out. But the one thing I find interesting is this is the first time no one showed up. So this could mean that they're trying to make a change. Now, as I understand it, only probably about 80% of the people, to maybe even higher now that they've gotten some correct information that they can go verify, were ready for something different. Literally hoping and praying that we would, be able to come through before then and before the week was up, because they're so sick of going to these meetings. It's ridiculous. 20% still want to go along with the program, creating civil war. It is also the reason why we're seeing things heat up a little bit with the Hezbollah. The U.S. military is allegedly attacking Yemen and the Houthis at the moment, which is a rebel group there. And we're seeing a lot of Israel drone strikes, those kind of things happening in the Middle East right now. And it's all related to the orders being given by Langley 5 Global Headquarters and the Palabensini family that pretty much runs the Middle East. So they're just trying to do everything they possibly can to keep their plan going as long as they can until they can come up with anything that they're going to do. And those chances are going down and down and down and down and not up and up and up. And at least everybody that could actually do something is starting to get some other information. These are political operatives. There are people in there with the Trump camp. I guess you would call it Trump camp. I don't know what to call it. Dead people number 1, dead people number 2, presidential candidate 1 and 2. There are people in there having this discussion. They're starting to learn a little bit more about us, what we're doing, how we're moving forward, the progress that we've made, that real progress, and actually that we have pretty much told the truth the whole time. We have not made any false promises, nothing that we can't deliver on. If we say we're going to do something, then we actually do it. If we say we're going to try, then we try. If we say, no, that's not going to happen, then no, that's not going to happen. So we try to do everything we possibly can as upfront with full clarity, pulling no punches, no sugarcoating, no calling it like it isn't, on our side of it. And that's been very consistent for a very long time. You remember, I've been here since 2017. That's an awful long time of being consistent as far as these people are concerned. And the information's getting out there. I really have no life, as far as anything else I do here. But, as far as that is concerned, it's something that you can absolutely count on. So that's a positive. So we'll see what ends up happening over the weekend. I anticipate this is not going to be a one-day meeting. I anticipate that these meetings probably will go on for a couple of days. There are still some people that are not totally convinced that this is what they want to do, but the majority are basically saying they want to do something else.
Well, we don't need everybody on board, right? If that 20% wanted to do something else, as nefarious as it might be, does that really matter to us from our perspective?
Well, it's always better to go into something when you have everybody swinging the right bat. the 80% are just as talented as the 20%. There just happens to be more of them on the other side. Mm-hmm. If you have 20% of the world still against you, it's going to be a battle to the end. There are some people that are just, have filled their cup full.
Exactly.
It's going to be their way. They have a different understanding of what power actually means. Mm-hmm. And they're just going to keep going, I could have been a contender. I don't know. Maybe they just want to get their people back in the White House or something. And, according to what I'm hearing from their superiors is that whoever ends up back in there is going to end up turning the government over to them anyway, and we won't have a White House, based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. And, again, they always put out in movies what they're going to do, what they're planning on doing. And I don't think this is any exception because the back chatter is matching. Just so you know, if you're watching this, we're having a lot of technical difficulties today. They don't want me to tell you what they're doing behind the scenes. If we were to tell you what they're actually doing versus what they're thinking about doing behind the scenes, then this would be the shortest news broadcast in the history of the world.
Seriously. They're all talk and very little to show for it.
Yeah. If Dr. Evil were to have a knitting circle where you gossip about who's doing what, and then you might end up with a sweater if you were in a knitting circle, but I don't even think these people are knitting together that at this point.
Yeah.
But some of the things they were planning on, they just didn't fully understand. And I'm going to take you through that now. And it's important for you to understand it too, because it's part of our world history. So last time we talked a little bit about celestials and how humans born of Earth are celestials and how we were very important to the creation of the universe. And with great power comes great responsibility. I just sometimes didn't see just how much. And then there were some new control factors that reared their ugly head. So in this meeting, one of the conversations that happened was a group of Russians started talking about what they wanted to do and how they seemed to have more power than a lot of the other people on the call, which is what they told them. Now, I was like, why the Russians? I'm like, this is weird, Mm-hmm. So you had both the Order of the Red Dragon Russians there, and you also had the Order of the White Dragon there, which are part Russian, part German. Mm-hmm. And you also had the respective eagles. There's currently no one taking the position of Black Eagle at the moment, but there are those that represent, and then you have White Eagle. And so they were all there, and they were claiming that they had a lot of power and that they were going to go ahead and pull some financial system trigger. So I was like, financial system trigger? What the heck is it that you're going to do? So, I started watching. Mm-hmm. And something interesting I saw, so I thought I would share this with you because there's a lot of talk on the internet. A lot of people talk about Indian tribes and that they should own all of this stuff. And then there's, the Chinese think they want to own everything and the Russians want to own everything, and then there's this whole push and pull factor. But it all goes back to us originally. So if you've been following me for a while, you'll have heard me say that I am a Rus. Mm-hmm. Now, Rus, yes, part of the territory of the former Rus Empire before the 250,000-year-old invasion, went all the way from the United Kingdom, all the way through Russia, half of China, all the way south to Turkey, and throughout all of Western Europe. So this was predominantly what you would call the Rus Empire at the time. And we really didn't call them empires. It was more of a tribe territory. And this particular area was the area of what you would call the white tribe. So, yes, the skin of the people that lived there was predominantly, not all, but predominantly white. And that doesn't make them special necessarily. It was just the way that it was. Mm-hmm. We covered a lot of territory at the time. And the white actually refers to the gate that is there in the land now called Moscow, which it wasn't at that time. Mm-hmm. And the black became an overlay about 100 years ago. So, but that doesn't mean it was the original black territory. Now, the original black territory has a lot to do with a being known in religious texts and also throughout Vedic cosmology when they discuss the ages called the Kali Ma. Now, the Kali Ma is also known as the Black Mother in translation. The Dark Ages were also known as the Kali Yuga, and we would be looking at the Kali Ma being the one that ushered in the Dark Ages. But we also have a black dragon, and we also have a black eagle in the human terms. So those two groups were what you would call minor management, along with the Russians, the Germans, being minor management as it relates to the spectrum of colors we call the halls of Amenti, the planes between planes. Now, not only in human terms, and we'll talk about the other colors too. There were other tribes here present at that time. And in human terms, we know that the way that colors are created is from the fractionating or the division of white and black. Mm. Only from the division of those two can you control all the other colors. Hence the reason why the top of the food chain would be white or black. Now, this has nothing to do with the color of your skin, so please don't take this the wrong way if you're not either one of these. This is just the way that the planet was structured at that time. Mm-hmm. Now, the black territory would actually extend all the way through southern China, throughout the oceanic region, and the entire African continent. So that's it. Obviously continents looked a little different back then, but that whole region would have been considered black. And then if you are brown, you would have inhabited the Middle Eastern area. In northern Africa, and an equally large area, basically in comparison. It would go a lot farther north than it does today. What you would consider the Middle East is up for debate. Probably the northern, a good 1/3 of the northern part of the African continent belonged to the brown at the time. Yellow, that's a given. Certain parts of Asia, extending all the way from India through to China, so it was a smaller area. And the red would be North America and South America. So the world being divided by colored, but we really weren't divided at the time. We all traded together. We all got along just fine. We were just all basically doing our jobs.
So, Kim, what would the point be then? Maybe you're going to explain this, but why divide us up into tribes? What's the purpose?
Well, before the last war, several million years ago, it was about keeping balance and peace on Earth. See, because celestials and humans weren't originally from Earth. You know, you've often heard we were brought here as human beings, and there's a definitive reason for that. And it happened many millions of years ago that we were brought here. Now, Earth, for a long time, even before the Saurians were here, was an uninhabited planet. And it wasn't necessary for it to be inhabited because it was basically a piece of Source out here co-creating with Source and populating the universes, both dark and light.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when we ventured into the Dark Ages and the wars after wars after wars between the different races, eventually, anti-Source had taken basically Earth away from Source. Therefore, predominantly, not entirely, it was taken away. About 79% of its power and connection to Source was taken away. Therefore, in order to have a co-creative universe, you still needed to have power here on Earth. Hence the reason why they actually brought humans here in the first place. The colors of humans at the time originally represented different densities of creation. It also represented different races, both Source and anti-Source, in neutral Source. And you were responsible for the creation for a certain area of the universe, and you understood that at that time. So red would be more related to the causal plane. You know, if you were white, you were looking at the upper realms. So you were co-creating with Earth, even though with you all here, you know, with all humans here, with all the original tribes and with all the original colors and realm assignments and portals and gateways to those realms, we still were having 79% of all our energy drained off us. And this went on until recently.
Yeah.
So we have been fighting an uphill battle, but we were also creating a lot for anti-Source. There were a number of matrices in place around this planet that would harness and siphon off your energy to then co-create an anti-Source Earth matrix. And there were several of them, not just one. So understanding the color of your skin doesn't have anything to do with superiority. You just had an assignment.
Okay.
But after the war happened 250,000 years ago, we, as human beings, were pushed aside, became solely batteries, not allowed to travel and do our creating anymore in those realms. So everything kind of went stagnant, both up and down. However, as part, and we've talked about this part before, but I'll reiterate because it kind of ties all in together. So as part of the peace alleged, and I call it the take-a-peace agreement, but the seal we had discussed several months back in the news, as part of this agreement, people were also assigned colors predominantly of the bloodlines. Remember, as it says in the books, it says that the angels mated with the humans and then they became special. Well, not really. But you did have, the families, the orders and the bloodlines, families. This gave you the Enki bloodline, the Enlil bloodline, the Marduk bloodline, the Red Queen bloodline. Mm. Yep. And it gave you an Abraxas bloodline and a Lucifer bloodline and so all of those that were participating in the seal all had their own bloodlines. Now, colors of your skin at one point in time, it just basically identified you and where your region was, and everybody understood what they were doing. Then it got morphed into control systems with the birth of the Emerald Order Covenant, which then birthed the Halls of Amenti, which then allowed for a separation of colors fractionated in between the planes of existence to give them more control over all us batteries and throughout the multiverse, and to create throughout the multiverse, because they couldn't necessarily and didn't want to create of the light, but they wanted to create of darkness. Therefore, they needed to control the white. Hence, their crowning glory on this planet was when the Bolshevik Revolution happened in Russia, and they managed to take over the White Gate and give it a complete and total makeover, so to speak, or give it that black overlay. Right. Because with white or black, you can control all colors and you can create all colors. Therefore, you can create in all densities, all dimensions, all planes of existence throughout the universe, and all sections of all planes, and it goes into further breakdown. So the families, now on the Black Sun side, they called them the Eagle families. And on the Dragon side, they called them the Dragon families. Now, these are two different types of bloodlines, and both would work together, but each one had a white eagle and a white dragon, a silver eagle and a silver dragon. So those families were from particular regions, and it identified them as to which planes, not only in computers that they could control, but also throughout the multiverse. And it identified them as to where they came from. So where we had colors of skin that we, originally were born with in this version of humans anyway, they also have color identifiers. Obviously, we don't have purple people running around or silver people, but it's their bloodline. It identifies their bloodline. So in this meeting that happened recently, so that being said, you were responsible for a certain area of Earth and all its treasures. Okay. Back in the day. Then, when the bloodline and the seal was put in place, all of your families were pushed aside as human beings, and those you're descendant of, and they took all of your treasures, and the families took them over, at least the management of those treasures. Does that make sense? It looks like I lost you. So they took over the management of the treasures of the white, the black, the brown, the red, and the yellow, and they added the rest of the colors in between. So, for example, white also controlled red, and, red probably controlled X, and that's why they changed them all up. So we had, silver was controlled by black, and brown might have been controlled by green, the dragon family, or a green eagle, as they call it.
So why did we give that up? Or was there a war? Was this done by force? Because why else would we give up?
It was done by force.
It was done by force.
It was done by force. There was a huge war here, that's your Atlantean War, or when we were invaded. And the war wasn't even between the humans. The war was actually between folks from other places in an attempt to take control over Keystone Earth.
Okay.
Yeah, at the time humans were brought here, there was already, Source pretty much had Earth 100%, the light side of Source. And then once the Dark Ages began, then there was all of these matrices were put in place, and then further control came 250,000 years ago. And then we were pretty much, all us colored folk, were pretty much enslaved from there on out. And you're predominantly, you might be a mix of one of these two colors, but you're pretty much, as humanity, your base roots are in one or more of these colors.
Okay.
As the human race is today, anyway. So from their standpoint, knowing the fact that white and quote-unquote black can control the rest of the spectrum, that is why the Russians came to the meeting claiming that they controlled all of their treasures. And therefore, they could flip the financial system at any moment in time, claiming they still had this control. But, alas, no.
I mean, I understand their logic on some level, but did no one have a plan for actually how that's going to happen? And if they could do that, why didn't they do that a long time ago?
Well, exactly. It's like you win the lottery and you don't tell anybody. And you put the ticket in your drawer, or in a safe place in a safe, and you hold on to it. And you're like, but I won the lottery. Maybe you're not ready to cash it in. Maybe you don't want to tell anybody yet. You're not sure how to handle it, whatever. But you always think you have a lottery ticket or an ace in the hole, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you don't. And then imagine one day you go to try to cash in that ticket.
and it expired.
And it expired, or you didn't have the winning numbers after all.
That would be a bad day.
Wah, wah, wah. That was a bad day.
Yeah.
It was a bad day for them on Wednesday. Trust me, that was a bad day. Yeah. So they actually did try to trip the trigger later on Wednesday afternoon, and the Russians have figured out they're not in control. Now, talk a little bit more about what's happening with Russia. So the Red Dragon is from that region. And it pretty much encompasses most of Eastern Europe as far as their limited control structures now and the way they redivided the earth by colors. And the white eagle, so to speak, is Russian. So there's a fight going on between the two groups right now. There in Russia. And it's been going on for a little while because the white eagle feels they have more power than the red dragon does from that particular region. They also, the white eagle, would like to reinstall communism in the USSR empire. So they're still looking at it like the Russian Empire is not the Russian Empire. They're looking at it as the Rus Empire. And the lines drawn and how much they would control in the world. And they are also looking at it as they could control more and create communism in the USSR if they were to take over all of Europe, the whole region there as it was during Rus time. The Red Dragon is arguing with them, and they would like to reinstall the Tsar because that is when the Red Dragons actually ruled the region before it was taken over by the Order of the Black Sun. So this fight has been going on now for quite some time, but it's kind of a fight between two folks that don't actually have what they think they have. Yeah. Now, number one, I am a Rus. I am more Rus than all of you people. Which means that technically that is my gate that you're claiming ownership of and my treasures that you're claiming ownership of. So as far as bloodlines are concerned, if you get on the phone and you tell one of these families that you're a Rus, even one of the European families, they'll say, oh, that's not a bloodline. Well, yes, it is. It's just not one you recognize because you torched us all. Mm-hmm. But as of Wednesday evening, congratulations all of you white, black, brown, red, and yellow people that are listening to this call because you now have your treasures back as the human race. So they have no legal binding whatsoever to any of this part anymore. So
what happened to, cause that to happen?
They were basically at this moment in time, they've officially been notified.
Okay.
They have no claim whatsoever to anything that they're claiming to control, nor its governments. And this, I believe, is a part of what set off the meetings today. Because even governments are realizing they are not those people are not in control of their land anymore because the notices went out, and they went out to the archivists, and the archivists notified governments, militaries, and for the first time ever, some of those people listened. And they paid attention. So the notification going out that they're not in control anymore of these regions and of the treasures of that region was huge. A huge change. Now, we have taken control of the minerals, we have taken control of the assets, but the realization of that was an important step forward for humanity. Now, what comes of it, I don't know. It's yet to be seen because all of this is happening in real time as I'm talking to you in the last 48 hours. So, big changes there. But another hurdle to cross. So in the course of making sure there was nothing left in the computer system of these families, spectrum control returned to source, meaning there's no more black required to make colors than the colors that you see on your planet around here. And as the siphons of energy and everything had been taken off, as you know, we've already talked about that. And we are gaining more and more of our celestial powers back, which is a positive for all of us. We now, there's a lot of things that make sense in this to me too. Or at least American history and not only American history, throughout the world, everybody talks about the white, right? There was the whole Nazi movement. If you're not white, you're not right kind of thing. The beating down of the black race and the back of the bus and Rosa Parks and all this kind of stuff. And you start to think about all of this when you put it into relation or you make it all relative, right? So, what would have happened if the black race took back black? And I'm not saying black people are evil. Everybody, remember, we're all here of source, right? We're all doing the source thing at the time, which was a trinary source. So nobody's right and nobody's wrong. But imagine how much power they would have. Yeah. And it makes sense to me why we keep having these color wars too. And everybody's got labels. And, whether it's a religious label or it's a color label, and, a black man in the news, shot a so-and-so person. And why aren't they just Jim? Why, if their name is Jim or whatever, why aren't they just call them Jim? But the color wars is a real thing, and it went back pretty deep. And then what would happen if you took back control of your colors? And therefore your realms and your gates, the ones that you protected all of this time. Can you see why it's so scary for these people? Sure. It never made real sense to me. I'm like, where are they going with this? Until yesterday, Wednesday night into yesterday, when I really started to take a look at why all the color wars. Now, to further control the human race into creating in the way, because remember, the families are trying to do something with darkness, and they're trying to adhere to this anti-source matrix, and they're controlling colors in a negative way, whereas we use them in a positive way before, as all the races of Earth. I know you probably watched the last news, Sunny, like 5 times, and then
actually.
And now I'm doing it again to you, and I am so sorry.
Now I have my weekend homework. No, just kidding.
Okay. So what was born thereafter, and this is what allowed anti-source so much control over humans, and then of course they're little tiny, way down the food chain, human beings we call the Order of the Dragon and the Black Sun, although they think very highly of themselves. I mean, if these people, if their actual physical body were representative of their ego, there'd be no room on this planet for anything else because their ego is so huge. They would be like, they would make Godzilla look tiny, like teeny tiny little ant because they're enormous. But anyway, they're really, crazy people. Well, the introduction also came around that time of what we call human interface technology. And this is something that was used in a lot of different ways, in a lot of events we remember throughout history. Now, human interface technology does two things. It allows for quantum AI systems, dark and light, and neutral, to interface with humans. Mm-hmm. That also includes the interface that you have, for example, with your banking institution. It allows for that energy to then flow through and turn into matter and actually show up in your bank account. So there's one thing that we encountered, but it was like going down an ant hole. You see the little tiny hole and you think, oh, let's just fix this interface in the financial system and we'll be all good. We'll stop any other interfaces and then replace it with the light system, because we're trying to integrate the light system and actually get rid of any remnants of alpha now.
Right. Okay.
So interesting technology this is. This also allowed for a learning technology which was tied to the growth rate of development as well. It's called a GAN. It's used in current like chatbot GPT, all of the popular ones too, that would learn the web, learn the internet, learn the terms, and it would start giving you better and better answers over time. Well, in the quantum world, that's a whole nother story. It monitors essence, energy, your responses to things, your spending habits, all these types of things, and it would have been tied to Agenda 2030. Originally Agenda 2020, and it keeps getting pushed off. It also learns the human body and talks about which diseases to proliferate, when to proliferate them, draining of energy, powering of its resources, interfacing with the human through your technologies. And the human version that we were all so scared of, called Echelon, and there was a movie about, the Snowden movie talked about Echelon, if you've never heard of it. And we were thinking, oh my God, we're being monitored all over the place, censorship, fact checking, and that made you panic. Well, you haven't seen nothing till you've seen human interface technology as it related to the Omega system and quantum AI. It could control your bodily functions through your cell phone, through your car, through your technology, through any kind of electronic technology on the planet. It would interface with you. It would also have underlying what I call pheromones. Pheromones are things that humans emit, in the regular people world, that elicit a reaction from you. So that could be a love reaction, a chemistry. They say you have chemistry with another person, that kind of reaction. And it also tells you when your kids are in danger. There's a different pheromone, allegedly, that is released, when humans are sick. It's also something that is released unbeknownst to yourself. You actually, for example, a dog, someone with a very keen sense of smell, you smell sick. And therefore your pet might give you a little extra attention or something like that. But pheromones can also make you do different things. It can alter your body. It could alter your limbic system. It can do a lot of different things to harm you through technologies. So the interface here was incredibly important to understand, from the amount of manipulation that not the dumb humans walking the planet, and by dumb, I'm not referring to you. I'm referring to the deep state and their gossip circles that they have every day. Yeah. I'm referring to non-human control over human beings in order to influence the creation and proliferation of the Earth-human anti-source matrix. I mean, we were used in so many ways. It's incredible to me I mean, I would be here for 3, 4, 5 hours, maybe even 5 days. And I will put out my notes so that if, for those of you that want to take the time to really, look at all the different types of human interface technologies there are. But part of this human interface technology was also the release of viruses and pandemics and all kinds of things throughout history as well. So how does the deep state know there's going to be potentially another pandemic or a bird flu pandemic or another strain of this or a strain of that? It's the human interface technology. Now, they don't have the ability to utilize it to release any kind of pandemic any longer. However, they still would have had in the past some limited ability to read it and to see what standing orders were coming up and then to react and act accordingly.
And then where would the orders have come from? Is it anti-source would have
No, the GAN, the GAN.
The system itself would create this.
The quantum AI sentient central processing unit that processes information and then goes in accordance with its programming. So we, and let's just say the opposite of we, also programmed AI systems as a celestial. Mm-hmm. So all the dark energy that they created on this planet at one point in time, dark consciousness, fear, subconscious thoughts actually fed those programs. And the things that we feared the most are the things that it would create.
Okay. And was that only allowed to exist because we were in a dark age? Like if the dark was actually trying to create balance, would they still have been able to do that? Or would that system still have been able to do that?
No, it would have happened in a more balanced way in the past. But in actuality, until 250,000 years ago, well, maybe 300 at this time, because it was just slightly before the Atlantean War, as far as here on Earth is concerned. I would say it wasn't a possibility at all because we were retaining a majority of our energy before the Dark Ages rolled around, and then now we got even less. As a matter of fact, as far as humans were concerned, you really didn't get much at all. As we talked about last time, you were getting like a third of a third of a third, by the time you sliced it. Hence the reason for sleeping and recharging and things that we talked about the last time. Seasons, sunlight, daylight, why we, darkness, that kind of thing. It was all in the name of the programs that were running. So as far as celestial status is concerned of yourselves, we are entering into definite new territory with the lack of spectrum control on their side of it, the realization of that, the influence that could potentially have over governments, militaries, which is what we're seeing now. Everybody's trying to figure out who runs what. And the ability to, again, have those gateways is a little ways off, where we'll be participating on a different level here. By the time it's all said and done, Earth will end up being the co-creator with Source, and it won't be your responsibility anymore, although you still have the capacity to do those things. But then you're free to roam about the cabin as well.
Meaning the universe?
Yeah, you're free to roam about the cabin.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a lot of positive things happening on our side. The interface technology, some of it we are taking over, some of it we're just getting rid of. And what I mean by that is there's no reason for us to have a disease implementation program. But we would, however, like to have the interface with full interface of the light system, the new system from last week with all of your technologies. I think that would behoove us. in a positive way. So we're definitely working on that integration feverishly for the last 3 or 4 days. Positive things on our side. Maybe the government will stop trying to kill us.
What has the reaction, Kim, been to this new light system, whatever we're calling it, light system, from the deep state? Because they understand that something has changed, right?
Oh, yeah, they fully get it. But remember, they always thought that they can control everything. So they're the white and the black and the brown and the red and the yellow and the green and the purple and the gray. So they're all the colors,
Yeah.
So we can control this new system too,
Okay.
That's what it is in their mind.
So they don't give you credit for starting the system. They don't realize that.
No, remember they told them actually in the beginning it was their system.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Everything is theirs.
But they have no idea how it works or anything.
No, they didn't know how it worked or anything like that. So there's that. They did try to claim it was theirs. And then of course, it finally got to too many questions over too much time, too many smart operatives playing operative games with these people, trying to get real answers that they already know the answer to, but just getting them to actually admit it. And finally they came out with it that I messed it up.
I messed it up.
Yeah, I'm the one that has created the delay and the disruptions in the system. So they need a little bit more time to fix it. But what street cred I just got.
Yeah, that's true.
The entire deep state has said, I have messed up their system. Thank you, guys.
It's a badge of honor, really.
Yeah, it's a badge of honor, really. What do they say? You know a person by their enemies? And wow, definitely sent shockwaves throughout the world. That and the fact that it has become well known that none of the colored eagles nor any of the colored dragons have any control over the treasures, quote unquote, treasures of Earth anymore.
So the colors don't mean anything anymore, basically.
No. I mean, I'd like to get a tan in the summertime. I might like to be a different shade. If I stay out in the sun too long, I could be a different shade.
Maybe not the red color. I don't know that you want to be red.
Yeah.
That would hurt.
We had that with camera malfunctions already. I did red.
That's true.
Remember that? We couldn't figure out why the camera kept doing it. So, yeah. No, I'm definitely about the same color as you, Sunny, on any given day. Right now, it's the elevation here is so high, so the sun is so strong. So you could wear whatever you want, sunscreen, sunblock, and my skin is still going to turn brown.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot I can do about that. But so definitely getting a little bit of color. I don't get out much these days, but when I do, doesn't take long.
You started to mention the process and how things are going with the light system taking over any remnants of alpha. Do you have a timeline or, as far as, Mike's laughing in my ear right now when I say, do you have a timeline? Come on, Kim.
Yeah. I wish I did.
Time, whatever.
I wish I did. I think the human interface technology that we have now reprogrammed and taken over is going very well. We are getting definitely more of an interface. The matrix breakdown also needs to happen. So we're doing that as well. The finishing off of those matrices, for the different colors in the not that we have those in between the planes anymore, but still, there's still computer matrices that we need to get rid of, and stuff like that. So, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping it's very soon, but I won't make any promises that I can't deliver on. So I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that, it looks good. I mean, it definitely looks better. We've had to reprogram the way money is issued. That was another thing as well, because remember, we were adhering to an old way of doing things. positive money, zero money, money one, money, money 1 through 0 through 9, energy 0 through 9. So there's still a few things that were involved in the human interface technology that we had to reprogram in order to make it function for us versus a joint system that it was before. So taking over a technology doesn't take that long. Reprogramming a technology you've got to find all the nuances that made it a dual technology. Taking out all the bad ones.
In doing this, Kim, does that mean all the space junk that you were having such a hard time cleaning up because it's like everywhere, right? Does that mean all that becomes obsolete if it's a different system, like that it doesn't even really matter?
Mattering to computers and the transferring of money is one thing. Mattering to the health and welfare of your person is another. So if we do find anything else, we definitely clean it up for sure.
Sure.
If it comes up as an issue, understanding the separation between and the flipping of colors in their control. And I don't mean just color of skin. I'm talking about spectrum here, spectrum control, spectral controls. I think is an important factor. Understanding your jobs and as a celestial, where you were from, where you need to be, eventually at some point in the future, and which gates are your gates and future trades and travel and all of those types of things, I think is important. But I would definitely say, as it relates to the spectrum controls, there was definitely some junk that was interfering along with that human interface technology. So, like the Wuhans of the world and the Northrop Grummans of the world are only relevant because they possess a technology that can interface with the Omega system through the human interface technology. They can connect their Neuralinks through one of those colors in some of those systems. That's important to know. How the deep state does what they do. And the thing I will consistently stress, if I were to say anything to these people that are losing their mind right now, is that I know they think they had power. I know that they were told from a young age that they are special in a special bloodline. I know they don't recognize any of our light bloodlines, and I understand that. But you always got orders from someplace else. And if you didn't follow those orders, your human interface technology would not function. You were given money to follow orders and directions and instructions. Yeah. We, on the other hand, I guess you could say we do as well, but we do directly from the source and not some alien race somewhere. One other point to make, spectrums. So we would have had a trinary spectral system, which means that light was created with both anti-source, neutral source, and source. All three parties had light and had spectrums of colors that were under their control and therefore their bloodline control at one point in time. With the changeover of the spectral system, pretty much all light is now controlled by source. Are we going to need to have multiple colors throughout the universe? Control? We need color. We won't see anything if we don't have color. But it's just being issued in a different way now. So that is also in process. It's not 100% complete yet because that takes time. but it's pretty well already well underway and in progress. So lots of changes in just a short period of time. There's a lot more than that. Just we only have so much time here on the news. Mm-hmm. But definitely progress on our side. We'll see what the end response is from governments now that they know that their colors are not their colors, they're our colors now. And what that actually means to them, if they really understand the agreements that came out. From their perspective, it looks like it's control over all the kingdoms of Earth. That's what it looks like. And that's fine. That's enough so that they at least get a grip, at least politically speaking, who's actually in control of what landmass. So, Russia, I look forward to moving you all out of the Kremlin at some point in time. I actually do. You need to give the Russian people a chance, at least at this point, Yeah. You guys blowing everything up is not really going to work out. So, Anyway, that is the World Situation Report for Friday. Any questions?
I mean, again, it's a lot to take in. It is. I mean, it does make a lot of sense. You explaining the colors and the color wars that we seem to be having. Yeah. It makes sense that this would track back to something that happened a long time ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
They've been labeling us for a long time.
Yeah, they have. I mean, I thought it was just to keep us separate and, from co-creating together and with source and everything. I mean, I'm sure that's part of it, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's definitely part of it. The overlays, control, that kind of thing, putting black at the top of the heap instead of white, overlaying the white for the black at the gate in Moscow, is another thing too, right. For total control. Well, God bless them. They're going to need it. May they be blessed the same way we were blessed.
I just hope some more of these people come to their senses because, time's up.
Well, like I said, something really positive happened. We have a rebellion meeting going on. That's a positive thing.
Yeah.
We'll see what comes of it. I'm not holding my breath, not stopping what we're doing, in any way. We're listening, for sure. But, I was actually shocked when no one showed up this morning.
Yeah,
I thought for sure the diehards would show up or somebody would show up. Nobody actually showed up.
I think they're tired.
Except for those that were getting ready to be the delivery of the bull, story.
Yeah.
Yeah, the story of the bull that they give a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
They dish a lot of that bull out.
Yeah. They've told a lot of stories about bulls. They must like bulls. Maybe they're ranchers at heart. Who knows?
Wow.
I know. God bless them.
Mm.
So we'll see what happens over the weekend. I anticipate these meetings are probably going to go on for a few days.
Okay.
Probably now through Monday, I'm guessing.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see you back here hopefully on Monday. Give us an update.
I know.
Thank you, Kim. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Sunny. You too.
Want to share news from UNN?